Welcome into the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas, who is very busy doing something there with his phone. We will get
Target.
we will get to the Super Bowl. We will get to Eli Manning's Hall of Fame candidacy, which we will know he was a first ballot inductee on Thursday night. But we'll begin with the news that has been sweeping the nation, the trade or the news that nobody saw coming in a million years, and that is Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns, shedding shockwaves throughout the city of Cleveland. The Browns were on record as saying they were not going to trade Myles Garrett. As of last check, they are not receiving trade offers or not accepting them, not listening to them. They don't want to hear them. Mike, the Browns, I mean, you could argue they should be going to rebuilding mode, and Myles Garrett does not want to be a part of that, so therefore he wants a trade. Where does everything stand now with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns? Biggest news of the week in the world of sports. So we have to start with that.
You make the rundown. You seem to always start with Cleveland. I wouldn't say no one saw it coming. We've heard inklings that he did not want to be a Joe Thomas, which is a guy who was a Hall of Famer, but played his whole career in Cleveland and never played in the playoffs. Miles does have a playoff win, but he wants to go down as one of the greatest of all time, Frank. And when you want to be in that conversation, you have to have your biggest moments and some of your best games on the biggest stages, which are the AFC Championship and frankly the Super Bowl. And whatever the rebuild plan that Andrew Berry tried to sell Myles Garrett on was not enough, in Myles' opinion, to keep him around in Cleveland. And he threw Andrew Berry, the Browns general manager's own words, back at him in his trade request, which, in my opinion, was a little bit of a subliminal shot that this organization is not going in the direction that I think it needs to be going for me to want to stay here. However, and I'm no salary cap expert, but Jason from Over the Cap, who is as good as it gets when it comes to breaking down the numbers, made it seem like to trade Myles Garrett makes absolutely no sense for the Browns from a financial standpoint and is significantly more difficult to trade him than it is to not trade him. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to end up being a Cleveland Brown next year.
All right, I don't know whose decision it was to start with that. That's a bad producing decision because the biggest news in sports right now is Luka Doncic
Yeah.
being traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Mike was sleeping like a baby. His little beauty sleep, was not awake to see this news
It was like
happen.
1:30 in the morning. Let's not
No,
make
it
it
was
seem
like
like
just shortly after midnight Eastern time.
I did go to bed very early on Saturday, but yes, I missed it.
So very, very pathetic on that part. But I can walk you through the live real time progression because I was actually awake and paying attention to the world at that point. So Sham Charania, the fantastic insider for ESPN, sends out a tweet about 12 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday morning, late Saturday night, saying that there's this big trade. Uh, like Anthony Davis to the Mavericks for Maxi Kleber, Luka Doncic, and like I had to do like a double take. Like, did that just say Luka freaking Doncic? So then I looked at it again. Obviously, it took a few minutes for me to actually realize that this was happening, and then immediately I was like, organizational misconduct. And this is before any of the details about this move started coming out. And what I can't get over is how Nico Harrison, the Mavericks general manager, by his own admission and all the reporting that's been out there, is that he only let the Lakers know that Luka was on the table, which is,
That is
unless
true,
he
by the
was
way.
given mandated orders by ownership to only, or by Luka, one of the two, to only talk to the Lakers, like that is, in my mind, the single most like fireable offense for any executive in the history of sports. You have a generational super duper star who's 25 years old who just put the franchise on your back to take you to the finals, and now you just only contact one team that you could have gotten an all-time haul in return. Granted, Anthony Davis is going to go to the Hall of Fame as well, but I just can't get over the fact that they only contacted the Lakers. That I just something's extremely fishy happened here, and I can't wait for the investigative reporters to figure out exactly what it was.
All right, so let me preface what I'm going to say with this. I agree, Frank. You don't trade Luka Doncic under any circumstances unless he asks for a trade. I am with you. I understand that. What I'm about to say next does not cover up for the fact that I don't think there's any reasonable excuse to trade Luka Doncic. But Nico Harrison and the Mavericks were playing the Cavaliers on Sunday, the day after the trade went down, or I guess the day of the trade. And we were in the press room when he talked about it. And he said, "We thought we're in a championship window right now. Had we traded Luka for 12 first round draft picks or whatever the going value is, we're not going to be around long enough to see the fruit of that bear. So we wanted to go out and get the best win now package we could possibly get." You may not agree with that. I'm just telling you what he said. And if you're going to take Nico at his word for that, and that's all we have to go off of. I think there's something fishy going on with ownership. I'm going to be honest. There's no way if Mark Cuban's the owner, this happens. But that's a whole conspiracy theory that maybe is real, maybe is not. But if you're going to take Nico Harrison, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Nico Harrison had his word of we want to be in win now mode. I do kind of think that Anthony Davis is the best asset they could get back in return for Luka Doncic. And the starting lineup for the Mavericks right now, and everybody's healthy, and that's a big if and when because Kyrie and Anthony Davis and Derek Lively isn't currently healthy, and those two don't have the perfect bill of health. It's a really talented starting five and presents a ton of challenges for Western Conference teams, including the Oklahoma City Thunder, who don't necessarily have the bigs to match up with that. So if Nico Harrison was determined on getting Anthony Davis back, I understand why he doesn't open up a bidding war. And if you make Luka Doncic available, then the fan base revolts. And we've seen situations where the fan base can influence front office decisions, and then you don't actually get the chance to trade Luka Doncic. So while I disagree with the fact that you should have ever traded Luka in the first place, and while I do agree that you could have gotten a significantly bigger haul back had you made Luka available, if Anthony Davis was the guy that they targeted and said, this is the guy we think could keep us in this championship window for 2 or 3 years, and we think Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving is a good enough 1-2 punch to win a championship, then I at least can understand the thought process while disagreeing with it. The thing I have the biggest issue with, Frank, the biggest issue is even if you are going to identify Anthony Davis as the one piece that you want back in return, how do you not get every other humanly possible asset from the Lakers? They didn't trade both first round picks. The Lakers did not give up their 2031 first. How is that not part of the deal? How is Austin Reeves or Dalton Knecht not part of the deal? The fact that and I know you listen to Bill Simmons, so I'm sure you heard Kirk Goldsberry on his podcast yesterday talking about how over the course of a month, it seemed like Rob Pelinka kind of swindled Nico Harrison into lessening the deal and the demands because there was risk that Luka may not re-sign. And that to me is the inexcusable part of the believable factor into what Nico Harrison said. But I was shocked, Frank. I still can't believe they traded Luka Doncic.
So the part that you're like glossing over is the so-called championship window. The only reason why they even remotely competing for a championship last year or in the past couple of years is because of Luka Doncic. You take him off the team, like then what the hell are the Mavericks? Like they have this false perception that they're so close to a championship. The only reason why they were close is because of Luka, and now you just got rid of him.
I agree with you. I'm just telling you. I'm speaking from Nico Harrison's perspective. I agree with you, Frank.
How about you become a man and stop just like hiding behind the shield of Nico Harrison's words and actually say what you think?
Because if we both say the exact same thing, it's a boring ass podcast, Frank.
So, I mean, to give Nico Harrison some sort of credit, like I thought when they traded for Kyrie Irving, like the first time, I thought, wow, what an idiot. And granted, they did, and if you look at what they ended up giving up, Spencer Dinwiddie, I believe, is back with the Mavericks, so they already got him back. Dorian Finney-Smith is with the Lakers, and they're still holding up that I believe it's a 2029 first from Dallas, which looks even better now for the Nets now that Luka's not on the Mavericks anymore. But you could argue that like that. Even though they haven't won a championship, at least yet, like that trade worked. Was the Mavericks won that trade? And
they definitely won that trade. Frank, if they win a championship, one championship with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, that's a big if and a big what. This trade's a colossal win. And even if Luka Doncic goes out and has a 10-year career in LA and does incredible things, if this leads them to one championship, it's a win for the Dallas Mavericks. It could also still be a win for the Lakers. If this doesn't lead to a championship, Frank, and they don't reach the finals and this pairing never lives up to the expectations that Nico Harrison believes, it's a catastrophic failure and will go down as one of the most baffling, worst trades ever. To not have Luka Doncic on your team after spending the first 7 years of his career there and putting up numbers that literally no player in NBA history has ever matched through his first 6.5 seasons, to trade him away, you have to have some sort of conviction that he's not going to resign, or there's something bigger behind the scenes that we don't know about that leads you to not want to have him be part of your team moving forward. We'll never know the answer to that. I don't think we'll
How do
ever
you know? How do
actually
you know? How
get
do you
the
know we'll
answer to
never know
that.
the answer to that?
I don't think Nico Harrison would ever admit it.
I mean, when he gets fired from the Mavericks, he'll do his little tell-all book or tell-all story, and he'll.
I don't know because it's gonna make him look even worse. If he
I
says like
I
if
think
he
I
says I
think
truly
I think
believe,
deep down he believes in his and I have no way of proving this, but I think maybe he just genuinely believes that Anthony Davis gives him a better chance to win right now than Luka Doncic does.
and that's fair, and I
Is it
disagree.
fair?
Once
You think that's a fair conclusion to
No,
draw?
I disagree, but I'm saying if that's his
It's
thought
not a fair
process, then
conclusion. It's
this
a
trade
horrific
makes sense.
conclusion.
If that's his thought process, then this trade makes sense. Listen, Nico Harrison is it's going to go down one of two ways. He's either a mad scientist, brilliant genius that changes the way we look at trading superstars in the NBA, or he's going to go down as one of the dumbest possible GMs to ever exist. There's no in between on this, Franco. This is an all-in, balls on the table move, and we criticize GMs all the time. In the Cavs, I'm going to use this as an example. They're just over $2 million over the luxury tax, which is not a big deal. It's only going to cost them $3 million, but it starts them on the repeat offender clock, which would have major financial ramifications in 3-4 years when Donovan Mitchell is up for another extension. They're in a situation right now with the best record in basketball. Do we stay over the tax and start the repeater clock, or do we trade one of these guys away that doesn't even play, but we don't want to mess with chemistry to get under the tax? If Kobe Altman goes all in and says, hey, we're not changing up our team, we don't care about the clock starting early, I'd commend him. I believe it. And if he says, you know what, we love Sam Merrill, but he's not in our playoff rotation here, Utah, take him for $2 million so we get under the tax and we'll get a second round pick, I'd say I get it. I'm just being logical here, Frank. I disagree with the move. I would never have traded Luka Doncic unless he demanded a trade. I would never. But it happened. So let's try and figure out the thought process and the rationale of why Nico Harrison did it.
So the other explanation which I can think of is Luka didn't want to come across as like the way Jimmy Butler is now. By the way, Jimmy Butler apparently is content with returning to the Heat and just resuming his career as normal. That's a report that came out. But maybe Luka he went to ownership and said, "Listen, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go to the Lakers, but I don't want you making a big fuss about this. Do it behind the scenes. Do it privately." And Nico Harrison obeyed his wishes and negotiated with Pelinka to send Luka to Dallas, so send Luka to LA and get the best return that in his mind he can get, and he decided that since it's a players' league that he would take the bullets for Luka here and do what makes it like that's like the only plausible explanation I could think of that makes sense. That
What about the
Luka's
ownership? What about the ownership conspiracy? Because gambling in Texas is legitimately a major
so,
thing, and the
but
team
the
that
so that counteracts what you just outlined with Anthony Davis is that because that what that report said about them trying to move the team to Vegas, part of that rationale was trying to like gut the team and make the fans
well,
angry, huh?
you don't think this guts the team and makes them angry? Luca
I
was
mean, it makes
beloved,
it, but
Frank,
it does maybe in the short term. But if
and
they
and,
show,
and
if
if this
they, but
doesn't
hang
work
on, but if
out,
they show that they're a competitive team and go on this magical run, then it failed.
well, that's my whole point, Frank. This has one of two outcomes.
Right.
There's no in
But it
between
could,
here.
but like that's why I don't believe the conspiracy because it could work out.
You realize what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what I'm saying.
So this either works and they're geniuses, or this
But
fails
that
and
that
it's.
that disputes the conspiracy. So in your mind there is no
I was asking
conspiracy.
you if you believed the conspiracy. I didn't say I believed it. I was
Well,
asking
you're
you.
making the case to believe it.
I was asking you if you believed it. Listen, I believe Nico Harrison for when he says we thought we could keep this championship window open for 2 to 3 years
No, I
with
don't believe the
Anthony Davis, and
conspiracy.
that's how you have to win in today's NBA. And we didn't want to put it on the open market because if we got an offer from Oklahoma City, who has 12 first round picks to trade, we'd be more inclined to take the picks. And guess who's not going to be around to make those draft picks? Me. Because I'm the
But
guy that
that's
traded Luka
that's a
Doncic for a
trade that
rebuild.
you make if you're trying to gut the team is getting all those first round picks.
Frank, I'm telling you, I don't necessarily believe the conspiracy. I was asking you if you did.
I just find that super hard to believe.
Fair. I don't believe it either. I never said I did.
So on Thursday night, we're gonna find out that Eli Manning is indeed a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know
Rightfully
you're,
so.
huh?
Rightfully so.
All right. So Eli Manning. So you consider it a lock that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No, I don't think he's a lock. I think he should be. I think he should be. And I know you can throw out all the stats of his 500 record and his never been in an All Pro and his Pro Bowls. And now Drake May made a Pro Bowl, which, by the way, if you're going to use the excuse of Drake May making a Pro Bowl, that's not a good excuse. How about Tyler Huntley 3 years ago making the Pro Bowl when he threw two
Which
touchdown
is
passes
exactly
the whole
why, like,
season?
anyone who references Pro Bowls as like one of the
They're
data points you
meaningless.
you look at when
Meaningless.
evaluating a Hall of Fame resume, Pro Bowl,
Meaningless.
after Drake made the Pro Bowl this year and Tyler Huntley a few years ago, you should never ever consider
Yeah.
Pro Bowls when evaluating a player's Hall of Fame candidacy. All pros, yes,
Here,
100%.
here's the way they should fix the Pro Bowl thing. If you are named a Pro Bowler, you should get that on your resume. And if you are a Pro Bowl replacement, you get to go, but you don't get to call yourself a Pro Bowler. You got to go, but you don't get that on your resume when we're looking at historical bios. Because the Pro Bowl should matter. But when the 17 guys ahead of Drake May all said, no, I don't want to go play in this stupid game, and then Drake May gets tabbed or Tyler Huntley gets tabbed because, hey, we need a third quarterback, so eventually someone has to say yes. You shouldn't get to put that on your resume with the ilk of a Lamar Jackson this year, who I don't even know if he was there or not. Like it shouldn't all be Pro Bowlers. But the stats are what they are, Frank. Eli was never a top five quarterback in the league in any given year. Eli was a turnover machine. Eli had two great playoff runs and no playoff success outside of those two playoff runs. But at the end of the day, on two separate occasions, it wasn't just lightning in a bottle once, it was twice. He was damn near perfect on a playoff run and led the Giants to two Super Bowls and outdueled Tom Brady in two Super Bowls. And for that alone, he's a Hall of Famer. First ballot, I'll hear the argument he shouldn't be. I disagree, but I'll hear the argument. But you outdueled the world's best, the sport's greatest, at the biggest stage when the lights are the brightest, to throne the 17-0 undefeated season Patriots, 18-0, whatever they were. Yeah, you're a Hall of Famer, despite the fact that throughout the regular season, you put up some mediocre numbers from time to time.
Yeah, I think he's gonna get in, but I don't necessarily believe that he's like I don't believe necessarily that he's truly worthy. I do believe he's gonna get in, but when I look at the whole body of work and the career record and the fact that he was never once an all pro, that's like pretty damning. Obviously, the Super Bowl runs, as you mentioned, lightning in a bottle twice. That's why he's going to end up getting in. Do I view him as like, wow, Eli Manning, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest quarterbacks
No.
to ever play the position? Absolutely not. But
Eli is my favorite athlete of all time. Like, I won't hide it. But I also am pretty realistic when it comes to Eli. Like, I am fully aware that when you're making the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks and your top 10 list, Eli's not anywhere near a top 10 list of all time quarterbacks, Frank. Like, he's not. And I love Eli. I would take a bullet for Eli Manning. He's coming to Canton. I have already bought tickets for the induction ceremony to be there for Eli. And I've already made 30 requests to my guy at the Pro Football Hall of Fame to try and get Eli to come on UCSS.
after he gets in, you're saying.
Yes, yes. And he says, well, we can't do anything until we know the vote. So that was his answer in all this. But I'm pretty realistic, Frank. I'm not a delusional Eli. Like, Peyton's a better quarterback than he was. And clearly Tom Brady, even though he's 2-0 in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, like, you take Tom Brady 100 out of 100 times. And hell, is he better than Roethlisberger? Yeah, I'd probably take Big Ben. Like, I'm not even going to lie. And Phillip Rivers, the playoff numbers are quite different, but in the regular season, Phillip Rivers was a better quarterback than
Do you
Eli
think? Do you
Manning.
think Philip? So, I don't believe Philip Rivers belongs in the Hall of Fame. But do you think he gets in
I
next
agree.
year?
I would not vote Phillip Rivers as a Hall of Fame quarterback. No, because it's unlike other sports. What you do in the playoffs in football holds a bigger significant, a more significant value. And Phillip Rivers, and I don't have the playoff numbers in front of me, and maybe I'm misremembering wrong. And his playoff numbers are way better than I remember. And if you want to look those up, Frank, that'd be awesome. But on two separate occasions, Eli Manning, for a stretch of 4 games, was arguably the best player in football. And I don't know if Phillip Rivers ever had a stretch, and I'm not sure what his playoff numbers say. He was tough as nails. He was a great regular season quarterback. I feel like he just came up short in the playoffs way too frequently. And you could say, well, he was in the AFC with Big Ben and Peyton and Tom Brady. Well, guess what? Eli beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl twice. So he also went through Aaron Rodgers and some other good quarterbacks in the NFC. So no, I don't think,
So,
despite the fact he's a better regular season quarterback, I don't think he's a more worthy Hall of Fame quarterback than Eli Manning.
so Philip Rivers 5-7 career playoff record, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions in his playoff career. Made the
Yeah.
playoffs 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 18, and 20. He made the playoffs 7 times over the course of his
So,
career.
so he's okay. I mean, not terrible playoff numbers, but I don't, he's not nothing special. I
And
don't
then
know.
the
I wouldn't.
so the biggest so yeah, my other guys that I see getting in, I think Antonio Gates deserves to be in. Luke Kuechly, I think, is a no-brainer first ballot Hall of Famer. I also have Terrell Suggs getting in, and I have Adam Vinatieri, arguably the greatest kicker to ever suit up on an NFL field, getting in. Those are the guys I have getting in. I believe it's confusing, but I think like you can only like vote for 5 guys, and
I think it's 5-2. Yeah. Keekly has to get in. Gates has to get in.
like this is
Suggs
Gates'
has
second
to,
year, so Gates didn't get in last year.
that's what I'm saying. He has to get in this year. So Gates will be in. Keekly will be in. Suggs will be in. Eli and Torrey Holt has a hell of a
But Torrey
case.
Holt's been on like this is like a fifth or at least a
I know. So maybe they just don't see it. Jared Allen was good, but I don't see
he's not a
it.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Vinatieri is probably the fifth guy. You're right. Vinatieri is probably the fifth guy.
So we'll see how that goes. And then the biggest, the granddaddy of all is the MVP award. I've been very angry at the sports books for not reposting NFL MVP odds. They've been off the board since All Pro was announced in early January. And the closing odds, Josh Allen was like minus 470. Lamar was plus 320. But apparently like the offshore books were like shifting their odds as like the playoffs are going, which makes no sense. So I literally have zero idea how this is going to go down on Thursday night. And I do personally believe that Josh Allen this season was the most valuable player in the NFL, given his supporting cast. Obviously, Lamar, if you're arguing who's the most outstanding player of the two, yes, Lamar Jackson was more quote unquote outstanding than Josh Allen. But I just believe that given the supporting cast, the pieces that the Bills lost, what the Bills would be if you took him off the team, I just think that there's no question of the two, Josh Allen is more valuable, but people are so glued to the stats. They're like, all they see is the stats and the rushing yards.
And the fact that Lamar's numbers are better than last year, and he won the MVP last year. Now it's had a better season. Frank, I agree with you. Listen, and I put a pretty big bet on Josh Allen when he had like plus 320 odds. And then I was like, this going to be the best bet of my life. I have also placed just enough money on Lamar that if Lamar wins, I end up breaking even. I believe Josh Allen does deserve to win based off the value. And I can't argue with pretty much anything you said. If it's outstanding player, like in college basketball, most outstanding, Lamar had a better statistical season. But you look at what Lamar had to work with versus what Josh Allen had to work with. And Frank, I don't want to say it shouldn't be close because Lamar is 1,000,000% worthy of winning MVP. To me, it's Josh Allen. If you take Josh Allen off the Bills and replace him with an average NFL quarterback, I don't think that Buffalo team is any good. And I know the playoffs don't matter. I understand it's a regular season award, but I think the playoffs kind of indicate that too, right? Like, look how
But yeah,
close.
but hang on. So we're arguing the playoffs, and I think this is an undisputable claim. Patrick Mahomes is the most valuable player in the NFL.
I'm just using.
So
Yeah,
that's why like
I agree.
but
I
don't
agree.
even bring up the playoffs because it's not worth it. Because if we're bringing up the playoffs, then Mahomes should win it every single year, just like
I'm
LeBron
not,
in the
no.
NBA.
I told you. I know playoffs don't count. I'm saying, but if you want to see the value of Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, they played the common opponent 2 weeks in
Yeah,
a row.
but that loss wasn't on Lamar. That was on Mark Andrews. So like that point you're just making is invalid in my opinion.
Lamar, although he played a very good second half, did not play a good first half and had two turnovers that ended up being the difference in the game. And I'm
But
not saying that it was
right, but
all Lamar's
if
fault
we're
by
playing the
any
plan
means.
game, Lamar did all he could. Mark Andrews fumbled.
Once again, I didn't say it was all Lamar's fault.
But you
I'm
say look
saying
at the
Josh
playoffs.
Allen
That
played a better
proves
game
that
against
Josh
the same
Allen.
defense than Lamar Jackson did. It's indisputable. Look at all the ratings. Look at the QBR, total QBR, touchdowns, fewer turnovers. And if you want to say, oh, well, Mark Andrews drop cost, well, Dalton Kincaid's drop cost him too. Cuts both ways.
Yeah, but I can't get like all like worked up about what happened in the playoffs. But what is interesting is, and why I'm not really have no idea like how this is going to work is because all the people that voted for All Pro also vote for MVP. So if they
Yeah.
thought Lamar was the All Pro quarterback, why wouldn't they vote for him for MVP? And that's why. That's why,
Is this
like,
the most is this the most fascinating MVP race you can remember?
yeah, I mean, I can't say I've like been locked in every single year of my life about who's going to win MVP, but it really seems like because usually the odds are still on the board. Like the
Yeah.
odds makers have just completely been like, we have no idea what the hell's happening, and I deep my gut tells me that Josh Allen deserves to win, but my, I think that given the way the All Pro voting went, if like those guys voted for Lamar, why wouldn't they vote for Lamar again? Like,
Yeah. It makes sense. Once again, I'm
and
with you.
then
I think Josh
and
Allen's
that
more
creates
valuable, but
this other predicament of like,
what is the MVP?
yeah, it's
Like,
like, what is it? Is it value? Is it outstanding? Like it creates this like it's very confusing. So
because if
I
we're
don't
saying
know what.
outstanding, then Saquon Barkley probably should be the MVP.
I mean, Joe Burrow had like the greatest like
Yeah.
statistical season for a quarter.
Which is why I think value has to matter. And I guess I just end all these MVP conversations when it's this close. If you took Lamar off the Ravens and put a league average quarterback, whoever you want to say is league average, off the Ravens and put the league average quarterback on the Bills, who's closer to what they actually were this season, Baltimore or Buffalo? And I believe Baltimore would be better with a league average quarterback than Buffalo would be, which shows how valuable Josh Allen is to that offense. And it's not take anything away from Lamar, who was incredible this year. I just think Josh was slightly more valuable.
So we'll see what happens. That's probably the final. That's maybe the second to last or final award announced on Thursday. Maybe they end with Walter Payton Man of the Year, but we'll see what happens there. Obviously, this weekend, Super Bowl,
Wait,
Eagles.
wait, wait. Before we talk about Super Bowl, are you going to give me my kudos for getting seven straight playoff games right when you're 4-3?
Who are you talking about?
Me.
Seven
I
straight.
had the Chiefs. I had the Chiefs and Eagles. You picked the Bills to beat the Chiefs. You stupid idiot. The
Did
week
I pick
before,
the
you
Bills?
picked the Ravens to beat the Bills. You stupid idiot.
Okay.
So just want to make it known that if you're looking for who's going to predict the Super Bowl correctly, listen to me because I haven't missed in 3 weeks, and Frankel has missed at least one game in each of the last three.
So we'll start with, all right, then who's your pick to win? Who do you have winning?
The Chiefs.
All right, yeah.
I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes. I'm just not.
So I've been thinking a lot about this, like the what has to happen for the Eagles to win. Mahomes has to turn the ball over, I think twice, or like so, the Eagles have to win it, which isn't a hot take, but the Eagles have to like win the turnover battle by at least like two, in my opinion. And Saquon's got to go off. He's got to snap that 100-yard streak. He's got to be the best player in the game. That's to me what the recipe is for the Eagles to win, which is a lot to ask, but I mean anything is possible. Mahomes but it just has to not play a perfect game, which is really a tall order for that. But I do think that if Mahomes does win and does get the three-peat, this trumps anything Tom Brady did in his career. Like Mahomes could retire after this game if he wins and be looked at as, in my mind, the greatest quarterback who ever played the game. Three straight Super Bowls. Like this stretch is just absurd,
Yeah.
and there would be no end in sight to it because he's only like he's not even like 30 yet. He's got so much amazing football left ahead of him. It's insane.
No, I don't know if I'd put it over all of Tom Brady's already, but he would be on the fast track to pass Tom Brady, which is what I just hope and dream about every single night because I don't particularly like Tom Brady. As far as the Eagles and their chances to win, I think it's going to be close. Philadelphia's a good team. Their defense is really good. Jalen Carter's an absolute monster. Zach Bond has been just an absolute incredibly valuable find in the middle of the defense. They have two good cornerbacks. They can make it ugly, but I think from an offensive standpoint, in a game like this, it comes down to who do you trust more, Mahomes or Jalen Hurts? And Jalen Hurts had his best game of his career on this stage against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and he has not played up to that level since. Can he refine that? Maybe, but I'm not betting on it against Patrick Mahomes, who, like I think you and I both agree, is the most talented quarterback of all time and seemingly plays his best on these stages. So I don't think it's impossible for Philly to win. I wouldn't be shocked by any means if Philadelphia came out on top. Saquon has to be the best player on the floor or the field. They need the Eagles' defensive line to just wreak havoc on Kansas City, whose offensive line has been better of late, but can still get got. And when you look at the weapons, I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Darius Slay, like they should have the advantage on the outside against Kansas City's receivers. But it also wouldn't surprise me if Travis Kelce has 13 catches for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game because it feels like they've been saving him for this exact moment.
People said the same thing about the Bills game though, and he had 2 catches for 19 yards. So like my favorite bet in all of sports used to be like Kelsey overs, Kelsey anytime touchdown. Like it was like the surest thing ever. I remember a couple years ago when they played that Bills in that crazy 13 seconds game. Like my Kelsey bets didn't hit until like the final drive before overtime where they tied the
But they
game,
all hit.
and then the anytime touchdown hit with the game winner. Like,
Yeah.
but it's this notion like that you just said about Kelsey couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, I said I wouldn't be surprised. And he had a great game against Houston, and he had a pretty big game against Baltimore too. And then Buffalo, didn't he? And then Buffalo
2 catches,
made
19
it.
yards against the Bills. 2 catches for 19 yards.
Yeah, Buffalo did everything they could to take him away, and kudos to them. It almost worked.
But even if they do, like Mahomes will just beat you with his legs. He'll scramble. He'll like. He's the most unsolvable quarterback that there is. It's absurd.
There's a reason that it goes Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes right now. And if he wins this game, in your opinion, he surpasses Tom Brady. And I think it's neck and neck, 1A, 1B. Yeah, he's incredible. But at this stage, Frank, I'm just not picking. If I lose and the Eagles win, I'll be okay knowing I bet on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like if I bet on the Eagles and then the Chiefs win, I'll be kicking myself. How the hell did I bet against Patrick Mahomes? I'm not doing it.
All right, that will do it for this edition of the Lucas podcast. NBA trade deadline coming up on Thursday. We'll see if the Cavaliers make any blockbuster moves. It appears Jimmy Butler is staying in Miami, which after all that, you have to be freaking kidding me. See you all next week.
Peace.